Hey everybody, welcome to BingeBot, your home for TV recaps and more. Today we're returning to a world of psychotic superheroes as we check up on Billy Butcher and the rest of the gang in our recap of The Boys Season 4. Now with the power balance leaning in Homelander's favor, what kind of madness awaits? Let's find out, starting with...
Go on, son. Have a bump.
Episode 1, Department of Dirty Tricks. 6 months after the battle between the Boys, Soldier Boy, and Homelander, Victoria Neuman continues her successful political run as Vice President-elect, in partnership with the presidential candidate, Robert Singer. One night, the Boys infiltrate an event at a hotel with the intent to assassinate Neuman on orders from Grace Mallory and the CIA. But things get more complicated when they realize that Homelander is in attendance with his son, Ryan. In the kitchen, Butcher finds Ryan and tries to make amends, but Homelander arrives soon after, and using his powers, he deduces that Butcher is terminally ill and only has a few months left to live. When the rest of the boys are discovered by Neuman's superpowered daughter, Zoe, she hesitantly offers Hughie and Butcher a truce. After failing the mission, Mother's Milk, who has temporarily replaced Butcher as the leader of the boys, is reprimanded by Mallory and Robert Singer, who especially wants Neuman killed as he fears having a Supe as his vice president. As Butcher waits outside, he is reunited with his old pal, Joe Kessler, and as the pair finally recall memories over a cup of coffee, Kessler encourages Butcher to take out all of the Supes before they take over the world. The next day, Hughie rushes to the hospital when he learns that his father has had a stroke and has fallen into a coma. After spending most of the day by his bedside, Hughie is shocked when his estranged mother, Daphne, also comes to the hospital, marking their first meeting in decades. Meanwhile, Homelander visits Sister Sage, the smartest person on the planet, and recruits her into the Seven to help with his master plan. Later, he invites 3 of his biggest fans to Vought, including Monique's ex-boyfriend Todd, and he has the Deep, A-Train, and the new Black Noir beat them to death. Afterwards, Homelander flies off to the courthouse as he is on trial for the murder of the protester from months prior. However, when he is found not guilty, a brawl ensues outside between the Starlight and Homelander supporters. Amid the chaos, A-Train transports the 3 corpses to the courthouse, framing the Starlight supporters for their deaths and further stoking tension among the masses. Episode 2, Life Among the Skeptics. As A-Train shoots another movie, he can't help but feel more exploited by Vought's marketing scheme, and is further annoyed by the new Black Noir, who is appropriately uncomfortable having committed murder on Homelander's behalf. At the hospital, Hughie's reunion with his mother is off to an awkward start, as Daphne reveals that she has power of attorney to make medical decisions on his father's behalf, and Hughie still resents her for abandoning him as a child. That morning, Frenchie leaves the apartment of his new boyfriend, Colin, but something is amiss, as Frenchie seems disturbed for reasons unknown. When he arrives at the boys' HQ, Butcher finally tells everybody about his impending death, and MM kicks him off the team, worried that he's become a liability. However, that doesn't stop Butcher from following MM, Kimiko, and Frenchie to their next mission, as they track Sister Sage to a conspiracy convention where she attempts to recruit the problematic Supe, Firecracker. Unfortunately, their cover is blown, and the boys are eventually ambushed by Sage, Firecracker, and her Supe friend, Splinter.
Oh, hell no.
As a bloody fight breaks out, Butcher comes to the rescue and kills Splinter, but both Sage and Firecracker make their escape. Back at the boys' HQ, A-Train extends an olive branch to Hughie and Annie, and gives them surveillance footage that proves that the Starlight protesters were not responsible for the deaths at the courthouse. Elsewhere in the city, following the advice of Sister Sage, Homelander and some stuntmen stage a bank heist so Ryan can swoop in and save the day for some easy PR and a boost to the start of his superhero career. However, things don't go according to plan, as Ryan accidentally kills one of the stuntmen, partially due to Homelander's influence.
Go. Throw him hard. Throw him.
After returning from the mission at the convention, Frenchie is further overcome by guilt regarding Colin, and while on a video call with Cherie, it is revealed that Frenchie actually murdered Colin's family years ago. The mood isn't much better at the boys' HQ, where Butcher spills his heart out to MM, stating that he wants to do something good with the time that he has left to live. However, when Butcher asks MM for his help in rescuing Ryan from Homelander, he flat out refuses, leaving Butcher to take his bitter leave. Episode 3, We'll Keep the Red Flag Flying Here. At a Vought rally, Homelander officially welcomes Sister Sage and Firecracker into the Seven, while strongly suggesting that his son will eventually earn the final spot on the team. As everyone settles in for the big first meeting of the Seven since the addition of the new members, Homelander also informs Ashley that Sage is taking over all of her duties. Although Ashley will remain employed at Vought, she now simply serves as a figurehead for the company, while Sage secretly runs things behind the scenes. With no one left to help but Joe Kessler, Butcher secretly plots to drug and kidnap Ryan for his own safety, and lures the boy to his apartment. However, instead of dragging the boy away to Mallory's safe house as planned, the pair share some quality time and have an emotional discussion about their past, causing Butcher to reconsider. Meanwhile, Kimiko tracks a group of the Shining Light Liberation members in the city, and together with Frenchie, she sets out to eliminate them. During their assault, Frenchie, high on psychoactive drugs, abandons Kimiko and floats away into a hallucination, where he faces further guilt over the death of Colin's family and all the other people that he has killed in the past. At the same time, Kimiko encounters a mysterious yet familiar young girl with a facial scar, but they escape as Frenchie returns. Curious about the new members of the Seven, MM suggests that they should try and turn A-Train into an informant, but Hughie and Annie are obviously hesitant about the idea. As the leader of the boys, he makes the executive decision to recruit A-Train behind the team's back, who tells him about an upcoming meeting between Victoria Neuman, Homelander, and Sister Sage at the Vought Coin Arena. Going undercover, MM and Hughie eavesdrop on the meeting, and discover that Homelander and Sister Sage plan to assassinate Robert Singer once he's president, so that Victoria can take his place. In return, they expect her to disband the Bureau of Superhuman Affairs, idolize the Supes, and grant them extra rights. But before Victoria can agree, Homelander realizes that Hughie is watching them and tries to kill him. But luckily, he is saved by A-Train, who rushes him away in secret. Afterward, Hughie goes to the hospital and has a heart-to-heart conversation with Daphne, who reveals that she left him during his childhood due to severe depression, and tearfully apologizes for not being a good mother. Back at Vought, when Ryan finally returns from Butcher's apartment, Homelander confronts him, emotionally distraught. Stricken with jealousy, the argument boils over, and as Ryan storms away, Homelander has another psychotic episode of speaking to himself in the mirror and decides that it's time to return to the lab where he was born and raised. Episode 4: Wisdom of the Ages. As Butcher's condition worsens, he takes a tumble in the shower, and bloodied from the fall, he continues to have haunting hallucinations of his late wife, Becca. Over at the hospital, Hughie's taken aback when Daphne decides to take his father off of the feeding tubes and grant him a natural death. Convinced that a dose of Compound V will save his dad, Hughie and Kimiko meet up with A-Train and ask for his help, but they are ambushed by Shining Light soldiers and the mysterious young girl. Although they survive the attack, it is revealed that the girl with the scar was recruited into the Shining Light by Kimiko herself, a memory that she must have repressed. Elsewhere, Annie meets with the president-elect Robert Singer and strikes up a deal, vowing to endorse his recent anti-Supe legislation so long as he promises to take Vought down. At the same time, Vought launches a slander campaign against Annie, led by Firecracker, who sets up her live talk show right outside of the Starlight charity house. Of course, the boys arrive to help her, along with Butcher, who MM has let back onto the team. When Firecracker announces to her live audience that Annie had an abortion 6 months prior, she finally snaps and beats the hell out of Firecracker on live TV. At the same time, while Frenchie searches through Firecracker's trailer for evidence, he is attacked by the stretchy Supe Ezekiel. Luckily, Butcher arrives, and although he blacks out during the fight, he awakens to find Ezekiel completely torn to bits. Still mentally unstable, Homelander visits the Vought lab of his childhood and begins to exact a slow revenge.
I do want you to jerk off in front of us right now. We're all gonna laugh at you, okay?
Threatening the staff and killing some of the scientists who raised him, Homelander wreaks havoc, but he stops when Barbara, the lab's director, arrives. In conversation, Barbara reveals that Homelander had always had the power to escape captivity as a child, but Vought psychologically conditioned him into being obedient, using his basic human desire for love and approval. When she tells Homelander that he will never be able to get rid of this humanity, he kills the entire staff and locks Barbara in a padded room with their eviscerated bodies, taking his leave while completely covered in blood. In the wake of Annie and Firecracker's brawl, things are bad all around. Back at the Starlight house, as Colin tries to tend to Frenchie's wounds, he finally tells Colin the truth about the murder of his family. Horrified, Colin beats Frenchie bloody and threatens to kill him if they ever cross paths again. Meanwhile, Robert Singer calls Annie and cuts off their partnership, with her public image now tarnished. However, there is a glimmer of hope, as A-Train finally coughs up the dose of Compound V for Hughie. Although Butcher advises against using the V and even admits that he took some himself 4 months prior but to no effect, Hughie decides to bring it to the hospital and meets with his mother. After stepping out for a cup of coffee, Hughie is shocked when his father starts to convulse and ultimately wakes up from his coma. Episode 5. Beware the Jabberwock, my son. With Hughie's dad now lucid and seemingly healthy, Daphne admits that she gave Hughie's father the dose of Compound V after it fell out of Hughie's pocket. Despite his worries over the potential side effects, Hughie finally allows himself to feel a little bit of a relief. Meanwhile, Butcher meets with Joe Kessler, who tips him off about a virus that has the power to kill Supes, which was recently developed at the College for Young Superheroes, Godolphin University. Unfortunately, Victoria Neuman is now in possession of the virus, so the boys whip up a plan to steal it. To aid in their effort, Butcher and MM pay a visit to Stan Edgar, who is now locked up in prison for the crimes that he committed as the former CEO of Vought. When Stan learns that Victoria has dosed Zoe with Compound V, he agrees to help the boys recover the virus, which would also earn him legal exoneration. Following Stan's directions, the team heads out to a safe house in rural farmland, where they discover a secret lab in disrepair, apparently run by Zoe's father and the ex-Vought employee, Dr. Samir Shah. When Victoria arrives with backup, finding Dr. Samir is her highest priority, and she upholds a truce as everyone searches for the missing scientist. While exploring the expansive grounds around the safe house, the group is attacked by a herd of abnormally aggressive, levitating sheep.
Run!
And while taking cover from the animals, they finally locate Samir. Ultimately, they are forced to use the last remaining dose of the Supe-killing virus to eliminate the bloodthirsty sheep, and everyone is left empty-handed. Although the boys part ways with Stan Edgar, Victoria steps in and frees him before he's returned to prison. Afterward, still guilt-stricken over his murderous past, Frenchie turns himself over to the police. At the same time, Vought fans get hyped up for the next wave of superhero movies at the big V52 Expo, but A-Train is less than enthusiastic. The same goes for Ryan, who declines to star in an upcoming teen show called Super School, and surprisingly, Homelander approves of his choice and apologizes for trying to control his actions. Worried that Sage will discover that he was the one who leaked the surveillance footage to Annie, A-Train coerces Ashley into helping him cover his tracks, so she frames the Vought News personality Cameron Coleman. Satisfied with the false evidence, Homelander has Cameron brought to the Vought Tower, where members of the Seven, along with faithful students from Godolphin University like Sam Reardon and Kate Dunlap, beat him to death. Back at the hospital, Hughie finds his father standing bewildered over the dead body of another patient, confused and frightened. Revealing his new superpower, Hughie's dad goes on a panic-induced rampage, phasing through the walls of the hospital and killing innocent bystanders in the process. After managing to calm him down for a moment, Hughie realizes that there's no other option and administers a fatal dose of drugs to put his father out of his misery. Elsewhere, Butcher meets with Joe Kessler and shows him a disturbing secret. While everyone else believes that Dr. Samir was killed by the sheep at the safe house, in reality, Butcher has maimed and kidnapped the scientist and intends on forcing him to make another batch of the Supe-killing virus. Episode 6. Dirty Business. With Samir in captivity, Butcher and Kessler torment the scientist and force him to begin work on replicating the virus. But this time, they want him to create a strain that is powerful enough to kill Homelander. To make matters worse, Butcher's health is rapidly deteriorating as he vomits and collapses before experiencing yet another hallucination of Becca. Meanwhile, the rest of the boys get a new lead from A-Train, who tells them that Homelander and Sage are trying to create an army of Supes, and that Tech Knight will be hosting a gathering at his home where they might learn more. To gain access to the party and plant some surveillance devices, Hughie goes undercover as the drug-addicted Supe webweaver.
Oh my god.
God, why is it wear it so tight? It smells like ass sweat and broken dreams in here.
But when Tech Knight invites Hughie into his secret BDSM dungeon and the boys lose contact with him, MM, Annie, and Kimiko start their rescue. Making their way inside, Annie finds and disables Firecracker, while MM and Kimiko head to Tech Knight's study, where they are confronted by Sister Sage. When Sage taunts MM by bad-mouthing his family, he shoots her in the head and subsequently suffers a panic attack, collapsing onto the floor. However, Sage survives as her brain continuously regenerates. And thinking quick, Kimiko convinces A-Train to take MM to the hospital before taking the elevator down to Tech Knight's dungeon and rescuing Hughie. Afterwards, they string up Tech Knight, and after a bit of torture, he admits that Homelander and Sage want to use his private prisons as internment camps. After hearing this, Tech Knight's butler Elijah strangles him to death, while the boys leave the dungeon behind. Upstairs, Homelander and Victoria Neuman appeal to the wealthy and influential politicians at the party and convince him to overthrow Robert Singer once he becomes president, and surprisingly, they all agree to the coup. The next day, when Firecracker tells Homelander that Annie attacked her at the party, he realizes that Cameron Coleman wasn't the one who leaked the surveillance files, and that the culprit must still be at large. Elsewhere, Butcher and Kessler check up on Dr. Samir, and he tells them a disturbing truth. In order to make a virus strong enough to kill Homelander, it would likely become extremely unstable, resulting in an airborne virus that would kill every Supe on Earth. While Butcher sees the problem with this, as the virus would then kill people he cares for like Ryan, Kimiko, and Annie, Kessler sees it as a blessing in disguise. As tensions boil over between the two friends, Butcher has a terrifying realization.
A lot of them are innocent, okay? I know you.
Shut your f***ing cake-hole!
Just like Becca, the real Joe Kessler is dead. This version of Kessler is simply a fragmented part of Butcher's own conscience, a hallucination brought on by the V-infested tumor that's growing in his brain. With Samir in captivity, his health waning, and now unable to trust the very reality in front of his face, Butcher starts to realize the severity of his situation. Episode 7: The Insider. At Vought, Homelander and Firecracker have become closer, while Sage is ostracized from the Seven due to Homelander's suspicion. Now suspecting that Webweaver was the leaker, Homelander interrogates the grimy Supe and ultimately kills him in cold blood. Meanwhile, Ryan practices for an upcoming Christmas special, but starts to have second thoughts about his position as a propaganda tool for Vought. As A-Train provides more information to the boys regarding the potential assassin working with Vought to kill Robert Singer, they try to figure out the best way forward. But Butcher returns with a new idea. After admitting to the rest of the team that he had kidnapped Samir, Butcher reveals that he has also freed Frenchie from jail in hopes that he will help with replicating the virus. MM, who is now more concerned about the safety of his family than anything else, hands leadership of the team back to Butcher, despite his ailing condition. While investigating the suspected assassin's house, Butcher, Hughie, and Annie uncover evidence confirming an assassination attempt, but they're even more shocked to encounter a shape-shifting Supe who can seemingly take on the appearance of anybody they touch. Unfortunately, the Supe gets away, adding another element of mystery to the unfolding conspiracy. At Samir's impromptu lab, Frenchie and Kimiko assist the scientist, but they also have a much-needed talk about their friendship. Opening up emotionally, Kimiko tells Frenchie the real reason that she is mute. When she was training as a forced child soldier under the Shining Light Liberation Army, she murdered another young girl, and ever since that, she has been unable to speak. Comforting each other, they wonder how they will be able to atone for the crimes of their past, but vow to do the right thing moving forward. When Butcher and Annie return to the boys' HQ, they are blindsided by the Deep and Black Noir, who have been sent by Homelander to kill them. At first, Deep and Noir dominate the fight, but A-Train shows up and defends the boys, revealing himself as the leak, and along with MM strapped with a minigun, they help turn the tide of battle back in their favor. Unfortunately, the Deep and Black Noir survive, and knowing that it's just a matter of time until Homelander learns that he was the leak, A-Train goes into hiding. Back at the lab, Samir finishes the virus, but he injects it into Kimiko's ankle and escapes while Frenchie rushes to her aid. To stop the virus from spreading to the rest of her body, Frenchie amputates Kimiko's leg and puts the limb on ice to preserve the virus inside. With time running out, they decide to use this last dose of the virus to try and kill Victoria Neuman, as it simply won't be strong enough to take down Homelander. As Ryan appears on the live Vought Christmas special, he finally snaps, and publicly disapproves of Vaught's violent, hate-based rhetoric. Billy Butcher, who watches on from a bar, smiles as Ryan delivers his heartfelt speech, but once again collapses from his illness. That evening, Hughie is surprised when Annie seduces him while wearing her Starlight outfit, and her odd behavior continues as she gets up in the middle of the night and sabotages precious blackmail data in the closet safe. The truth of the situation becomes clear when Annie awakens in a grimy room, shackled to the floor, and realizes that the shape-shifting Supe has stolen her appearance. Episode 8. Finale. The next morning, the shapeshifter Annie seems just as happy as the night before, and in a touching moment, Hughie proposes to her and they happily agree to get married, but she abruptly leaves soon after. At Vought, Homelander becomes enraged when he's snooping through Ryan's belongings and finds a sentimental photo of Butcher and Becca. Coming back to a destroyed room, Ryan's disdain for his father's jealousy hits an all-time high, and he storms off in disobedience.
Come here now. Ryan? Ryan!
Following the argument with his son, Homelander lashes out on live television during a talk show with Firecracker and Victoria Neuman, and reveals that Neuman is a superhero to the entire world.
I'm not literally a superhero.
Immediately afterward, he asks Ashley for a list of anybody at Vought who has incriminating evidence against him or the Seven, an ominous sign of a deadlier plan to come. Worse yet, the assassination attempt on Robert Singer is now imminent, with the election results certified and Neuman now one step away from the presidency. At Vought, Homelander obtains the list that he requested from Ashley and orders Firecracker, Deep, and Noir to kill all the non-loyal Vought employees by the end of the day. When Ashley realizes that she's likely the first one on the chopping block, she secretly injects herself with Compound V to give herself a fighting chance. Meanwhile, Robert Singer is moved to a secret underground bunker where the boys and his security detail provide the utmost protection. However, when Hughie and MM become suspicious of Annie, the shape-shifting Supe finally attacks. Killing guard after guard, the fake Annie chases Hughie, MM, and Singer down a tunnel, but they are rescued by the real Annie, who had freed herself just moments prior. Returning to their temporary hideout, Annie recovers from her wounds, Frenchie finally recreates the Supe-killing virus, and Hughie gets an unexpected call from Victoria Neuman. Knowing that Homelander has become unhinged, Neuman begs Hughie to protect her and Zoe from the psychotic Supe. As the rest of the boys discuss the plan and ultimately agree, Frenchie and Kimiko hang back for a moment, and finally coming to terms with their love for each other, they share a passionate kiss. At the hospital, Butcher gets a surprise visit from Grace, Mallory, and Ryan, and although the meeting starts off well enough, things go sour quick. When Ryan learns that Mallory and the CIA want to train him to kill Homelander, he leaves, shoving Mallory into a wall and accidentally killing her. As Butcher mourns his fallen friend, the manifestation of Joe Kessler lurks on, and Butcher starts to accept that dire situations call for dire actions. When Victoria Neuman arrives with her daughter, Butcher reveals that he has superpowers, sprouting tentacles just like Zoe. Strangling Neuman with his many tentacles, he rips her to shreds and takes the virus from Frenchie before leaving the rest of the boys behind. As Homelander laments the failure of his plan at Vought Tower, Sister Sage arrives and informs him that it was all part of her secret master plan. Still working behind the scenes, Sage has framed Robert Singer for the assassination of Neuman, and now, the Vought loyalist Stephen Calhoun will become the president instead. In his first official act, Calhoun declares martial law across the country, and deputizes hundreds of loyal Supes to uphold the law, with Homelander acting as their general. Although the boys try to flee the country, they are systematically hunted down and captured by Homelander's goons, and as Frenchie is whisked away, Kimiko breaks her silence and screams out in agony.
No! No! No!
However, Annie manages to fly away and evade capture, while Butcher remains on the run with the last dose of the Supe-killing virus. As the rest of the world falls into chaos, Calhoun guides Homelander to a secret bunker and shows him one last secret: the cryogenically frozen body of his father, Soldier Boy. And that brings us to the end of The Boys Season 4. Man, it looks like this series finale is shaping up to be a bloodbath. Hey, thanks to everyone who stuck around to the end of the recap. If you want to show your support for the channel, maybe share the video with a friend or drop us a like. If you want to see more videos and recaps on the latest and greatest TV shows, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll be back with more recaps in the future, don't worry. But until then, this is BingeBot, logging off.